What's up guys, JB2017 here, and today I wanted to share my overall thoughts with the Automatron DLC. I've spent around 10 hours playing the new content, which includes completing the Mechanist questline, doing some of the Radiant quests afterwards, and exploring the robot workbench. The bulk of that time I've spent customizing robot companions and testing different mod combinations, and that's clearly where most of the time is going to be spent if you choose to explore it. And I've got a lot to say about that, but first I wanted to touch on the Mechanist and that questline. Before we jump in, I want to give you all a chance here. Spoiler warning, I will be talking about everything that happens in this DLC, who the Mechanist is, the questline and all of that. So if you haven't played through it, you don't want to be spoiled, stop here. With the Mechanist, of course, you start off by meeting Ada, the Assaultron, in the aftermath of her caravan. She's the narrative driver for this whole questline. All of her people and many more were killed by the evil Mechanist robots, and, for me, that felt like a legitimate call to action. It was similar to the call to action that Bethesda used in Fallout 3 with that Mechanist, Scott Walensky, but in that game, it was more of a goofy side quest, and Scott really didn't have an endless robot army. He wasn't really a threat to the entire Capital Wasteland. So it's similar in that the people of Canterbury Commons really needed your help then, and in Automatron we have Ada asking for a similar type of help. The Mechanist as a character in the beginning feels like a real legitimate threat this time around, and I enjoyed the tone that the Automatron questline took on. I really felt that sense of urgency, and I hadn't felt that since the end of the vanilla game, with deciding which faction you want to choose, the nuclear option and all of that. As far as quest design, this DLC really didn't offer anything new. It was exactly what you would expect from Bethesda, a series of go and find this, loot this item, and move on to the next objective kind of quests. And I don't really know if we can expect more from them, since Fallout 4 really just continues the Bethesda questing formula that they've used for a decade. So where I'm going with this is I think that's just a general complaint or criticism of Fallout 4 as a game as a whole, not just Automatron. It could have better quest design, but it's really just continuing what we've already seen. I did, however, appreciate that they wove the radio beacon and MSAT quest items into the new robot workshop. It was a really smart way to integrate this story, with the questline and, the Mechanist, with this new gameplay system and really introduce players to that. The quests also took us into two fairly interesting dungeons. The first was the Rust Devils dungeon at Fort Hagen Satellite Array, which gave us a glimpse at a new mini-faction of raiders that were able to reprogram robots to actually fight for them. And we got to see a lot of the different robot combinations in there and fight the big bad Captain Ahab, which was a very terrifying boss. I feel like he should have gotten more screen time and really been presented as more of a boss, and he really wasn't presented as such. So I don't know, that's a little criticism, just something I would have, preferred myself. But honestly, if the DLC had been longer, I would have liked to have seen more of the Rust Devils. They're an interesting raider group. There are plenty of terminals around that dungeon that offer a backstory, but I would have liked to have seen more of them. The next dungeon was the Mechanist Layer itself, which took me over an hour to get through alone. It was a very lengthy, long, winding set of dramatic opening doors set in a really dark factory. And I remember one of the rooms with a ton of floating robo-brains pretty clearly. It was very, very creepy. It just gave off that classic, something clearly went wrong here in the past and I'm discovering the aftermath vibe that Fallout is so good at. It's something I really enjoy about the series. Throughout both of these dungeons, you could find a large variety of robots, and that always kept me guessing. I never really knew what to expect and what was coming next, because of course you don't have the full suite of mods available. Once you do beat the DLC, you automatically unlock all the mods, but that was a feeling I really appreciated too. And finally, once you confront the Mechanist, I've got to say I was a bit disappointed. This character was built up as a huge big bad guy, and then to find out it was a girl who stumbled upon all this power just because she made a programming error, that kind of storyline was not very satisfying to me. Sure, it was a plot twist, we didn't really expect that, but it's not like anyone could predict it was her. She's a new character. Isabel Cruz is not somebody we've seen before, so I don't know, I would have preferred to have seen a familiar face behind the mask, maybe a Derek Passion like people thought. A lot of people, that was the popular rumor before it came out, or maybe Scott Walensky was coming back. I don't know, it just seemed underwhelming. And on the same note, that doesn't ruin the entire DLC or that quest line for me. I really do think it's about the journey and getting to the destination, not just the destination itself. So it doesn't ruin it for me. It's just not something I would have preferred. But luckily, Bethesda gave us some context and reference back to the Mechanist from Fallout 3 with a little drawing made by Derek Passion, who again was the kid that idolized the former Mechanist in Fallout 3. On the flip side, I appreciated how we were given a choice to kill or spare the Mechanist. That was something that the community and myself were truly worried about, but Bethesda did deliver on giving player choice this time around, and I hope it's a trend that extends to Far Harbor, of course, and future story-based DLC, because we can't expect more past the already announced DLC. Now let's talk about what you'll get the most time out of with this DLC, and that's the robot workbench. And I'm just going to come out and say that since a lot of time can be spent with this new gameplay mechanic, it makes this DLC overall, in my opinion, a hit or miss for people in general. Some people are really going to like the depth of customization and the ability to create tons of robots with hundreds, maybe 1,000 different armor, weapon, and appearance combinations. On the other hand, some may not be really interested in this new workbench and just wanted to play a longer storyline. I get that. Personally, I found the length of the story and the depth of this robot customization to be at a near perfect balance. If there was another Mechanist mission just slammed into that quest line, really like crammed in there, it would have felt really monotonous and repetitive for me. I would have gotten bored and just been like, when is this going to be over with? And I think that's because of what I mentioned before. Bethesda games have a lot of fetch quests or go and kill this quests. A lot of the true variety, in my opinion, comes from missions where you don't have to kill anything. Maybe you're exploring a certain place, persuading somebody in order to complete a task or solving some kind of puzzle or problem. That's where I find the variety in Fallout. And the nature of this Automatron DLC was that you did have to kill these hordes of robots, and that's the story they wrote. That's what we got. So for those reasons, I was satisfied with the story length. I wouldn't have made it any longer or shorter. Again, the depth of the robot workbench, if you're truly willing to explore and test the possibilities, is pretty impressive. I can see myself squeezing at least another 10 hours out of this new workbench, and also I think it was a very tactical decision for them to release Automatron before Wasteland Workshop, which is what's coming in April, because we'll be able to throw these, countless robot creations into that arena that we're going to be able to build and pit them against Deathclaws or, however other many creatures we're going to be able to trap in that DLC. The final point I wanted to make before wrapping up this review is that Automatron and the ability to customize robots just makes a lot of sense in this universe. In a world where we can customize our power armor and use, everything you can find in the world has a use, all these materials to create and modify our weapons and armor, it makes a whole lot of sense that we would be able to create and modify robots. This DLC is a natural extension of the tools that were given to us already in the vanilla game. The great thing about this is that it fits in very well and doesn't seem out of place as, an add-on piece of content. But on the other hand, it's not really doing anything revolutionary. And, to be honest, I don't really expect a $10 DLC to blow my mind, to, reinvent the wheel. But for me, it met my expectations for a shorter quest line and exceeded what I expected from the robot customization. It was well worth my $10. I'd like to hear from you guys. Was this worth your $10? And were you satisfied or disappointed with this DLC, and why? I'm sure a lot of you are not going to be satisfied with this DLC because, again, you wanted that longer story and you don't really find a lot of joy out of, customizing your robots. That's, purely a fair point to have. So share all of what you guys are thinking in the comment section below. Alright guys, today I shared my thoughts on the Automatron DLC for Fallout 4, and next time we will cover more Fallout on my channel, so stay tuned for Fallout 4 tips and tricks videos. If you learned something new, remember to hit that like button, I would really appreciate it, and don't forget to subscribe for more Automatron DLC coverage, robot build guides coming very soon, and general tips and tricks videos. Talk to you guys next time, peace.